Hey, everybody. You might know by now, but our top five format is one where my producer and friend Thomas throws out a list at me, an idea for top five blank, and then I come up with it on the fly. So without further ado, let's see what he's got for me today.
So, top five poker pot odds mistakes.
I think I'm just going to go with one. So I think that far and away, the biggest mistake that people make at kind of all levels, not just beginner, when it comes to pot odds, has to do with equity realization. So there's your equity, and then there's how much of your equity you realize. So what do I mean by that? Let's say that you know, whatever, you have ace queen, I have fives, I have 52% equity or something. But when you raise the cutoff and I call in the big blind, am I going to realize all of that equity? Maybe, maybe not. Being out of position, you realize less equity, and with certain categories of hands, you realize less equity. So the areas where this really comes into play, um, it's more often in like, so I guess I think of it a lot in PLO terms because I'm a PLO player, but every hand pre-flop has decent equity. Like the worst hands in PLO against some of the best hands in PLO will still have 35% equity. And you're defending the big blind getting 2-1. So according to your pot odds, you can call with everything. But obviously, we don't do that. And the reason for that is equity realization or implied odds and reverse implied odds. They're all kind of the same thing. So when you have a hand that is likely to flop, turn, and river hands that can do a lot of betting and a lot of calling, then you have good implied odds. You have good equity realization. If you have a hand that is not going to be able to do a lot of betting, not going to be able to do a lot of raising on a lot of flops, turns, and rivers, and has to do a lot of folding, then you have poor equity realization or reverse implied odds. So in Hold'em, a good example of this is, middle position raises and it's folded to you in the small blind and you have ace seven offsuit. You're like, well, if he doesn't have a pair or ace high, I have the best hand. And even if he has, if he has king queen suited, I have the best hand. If he has, even if he has kings, I have whatever that is, 30% equity, which is not that bad. But the problem is when you flop an ace and a lot of money goes into the pot, oftentimes you're going to be up against a bigger ace. You're going to lose a big pot. And when you don't flop an ace, let's say Jack 10-3 is the flop, you're going to check fold and sometimes check fold the best hand and not get to realize all of that equity. So for example, let's say your opponent has king queen, the flop is Jack 9-3, you check, your opponent bets, you fold, you folded something like 60 to 65% equity right then. And so not like you had 55% pre-flop, you called. On the flop, you had 65% equity and you folded. And that's going to happen very often when you have a hand that doesn't flop a lot of draws, doesn't flop a lot of like very strong made hands. And so looking at just your pot odds and what your equity is against your opponent's range is a mistake that, or rather, is a mistake in the way of looking at things that leads to mistakes in the way you play your hands. And this concept carries over street to street. So sometimes, you'll have a drawing hand that, based on the bet size that you're facing right now, could call. But you have to keep in mind that you're gonna face future bets. You might not realize your equity because you have to fold the turn, not getting to see the river card, or you have a weakish draw where when you do hit, you don't have implied odds, you have reverse implied odds because your opponent's going to have a stronger flush reasonably often. For example, you see this a lot in limit games. So like 7-card stud, pre-flop you're getting whatever 4-1, 3-1. You could play so many hands if the hand ended right there. But the problem is there are, what is that, 5 more streets of betting or something in 7-card stud. So if you want to actually see your way all the way to 7th street, you're going to need to put in another bet and another bet and another bet. And so your true odds are a lot worse than they seem. So yeah, keep in mind that, keep an eye on hands that realize their equity poorly, because again, they don't flop or turn or river things that want to put in a lot of money, and they're more often doing the check calling and guessing and hoping and hanging on. And then other hands where you don't quite have the equity to call. Let's say that you flop like a nut flush draw with ace deuce of spades on king 7-5, and whatever, your opponent bets 2x pot, and they show you that they have king 7. You don't have the odds to call there because you're something like 33% equity. Actually, that's a bad example. Maybe they pot and they show you 2-pair. Regardless, you don't have the odds to call because you're going to hit your flush on the turn, whatever, 16, 17% of the time, and then they're going to keep betting, you're going to fold. But when you do hit your flush, you're going to make a lot more money, and you're going to be able to put in a lot of money. So in that case, and if they, I mean, this is again a bad example because they've shown you that they have 2-pair, but in practice, in spots where they can have weaker flush draws as well, and you can win huge pot when you hit. Same thing is true of like playing small pocket pairs, multi-way, or heads up, but like especially multi-way where pocket threes, it does not have great equity against 4 other hands, but when you do hit your 3, you can win a big pot. Those are hands that over-realize their equity, and of course, out of position, you realize less of your equity. In position, you realize more of your equity, which is why you get to play more hands in later position. Hopefully that's helpful for some of you, and you keep that in mind as you make your pre-flop hand selections and decide what to continue with on the flop as well.